Welcome to our podcast celebrating Scottish culture and entertainment, which is here to sing the praises of books, films, comedy, music, theatre, exhibitions, telly, poetry and all that jazz. I'm Nicola Meehan. I'm an arts writer and broadcaster, and I'll give you the lowdown on what's coming up, what's happening now, what came before and what we love, which is to say that every week I'm here to give you a kick up the arts. Before we go any further, I want to tell you that A Kick Up the Arts is coming to a venue near you very soon. I've got some really lovely events to announce in Edinburgh and Glasgow and elsewhere around the country, but for now, I'm thrilled to say that I'm coming to Aberdeen's Fab Book Festival, Granite Noir. It's the 23rd of February, it's a Sunday afternoon. I'll have special guests and all sorts of chat, and it is going to be great fun. I would love you to come along. I'm going to tell you about it all in good time, but for now, there are tickets available right now via Granite Noir. But anyway, back to this episode of A Kick Up the Arts, all back to mine, where a special guest gives us a virtual night in round theirs. They chooses a Scottish album to play us, and a film to show us, and a book for some bedtime reading at the end of the night. This time I'm joined by a man who has starred in so many things that I have loved, from films like Local Hero, Restless, Natives and Gregory's Girl, he was Gregory's dad, to TV landmarks like Tutti Frutti, and who can forget him as the suave or smarmy and womanising bank manager Mr. McLelland in City Lights. The brilliant actor, writer and musician Dave Anderson has variously been a Livewire and revolutionary theatre ventures 784, Wildcat and A Play, A Pie and a Pine, often with his long-time and much-missed sparring partner David McLelland. And among his myriad songwriting charms, he soundtracked Tony Roper's iconic Glasgow play The Steamy. We caught up at Glasgow's Moor. You'll hear the clattering of our teacups and the busy, busy road outside, and we touched on at least some of Dave's amazing work along the way. But he also sang the praises of his sometime Wildcat theatre comrade Mike O'Mara, and a book thanks to the superb Chris Brookmeyer, and he picked a film to show us, and, spoiler alert, it's one that he starred in thanks to a fateful pint in the West End of Glasgow. Dave's an absolute legend in our cultural landscape, and it was such a joy to meet him and to interview him for what I am shocked and appalled to say was the very first time. I really hope it's not the last. It's a pretty grey and misty Glasgow morning out there, Dave. Last week I sat here and it was absolutely lovely and sunny, but we've got our coffee. We've got some tablet. That's one of my favourite things about coming to Moor. It's got a lot going for it, but the tablet's one of them.
But your favourite is a tablet, right? I love the tablet. I crave a tablet.
I know.
Sugar's just sugar, of course.
Yeah, once you start, that's it. It's hard to go back. Now, you know, I've got so many fond memories of coming into this place over the years, but I can't imagine what it's like for you, because there must be so many people that you imagine and remember when you walk in the building, on and off stage. Even within this room, it's just so densely populated, isn't it?
Yeah, not least David McLelland, of course.
Yeah.
You know, my comrade David.
Yeah.
Brother David.
Yeah, he was such an integral part of this and what was brought to life here. And of course, you go way, way back. When did you actually first meet each other?
I met David the day after I got married in 1973.
Really? Okay.
Literally the day after, yeah. In Skye. He was on tour with the Chief at the Stag and the Black Oil, and I was on a kind of hippie road trip honeymoon. It was good fun.
And did you go to the play? Is that how you kind of
yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And not just off chance. I mean, I'd arranged beforehand to go and see it and talk to the company and all that, because of my connection with Alex Norton, who was a stalwart of the company, of course. So we knew each other in London in the folk scene, Alex and I. A great repertoire of some Hamish Imlach songs and some various other. Good guitar, great, tremendous guitarist, Alex.
I think that's sometimes forgotten now, isn't it? Because he's so well known on the screen and on stage that you go back in musical stories as well. So that's when you first hit it off with Dave, or when you first meet him, the day after your wedding. That sounds symbolic somehow, doesn't it?
I know. Yeah.
And then when did you kind of decide or even start talking about it?
Well, I was just so knocked out with 784. I thought, this is what it's all about. This is really where it's at, you know. It can actually be relevant. Theatre can actually be relevant to people instead of just being folk coming through French doors and saying, or French windows rather than saying, you know, anyone for tennis and all that shit.
Yeah.
And not talking to the audience, you know. I hated that style of theatre. But all there, we're all sitting there, hundreds of us, you know, and we'll get dressed up, we'll come out and we'll have a drink, we're watching you guys work. And you don't even recognise our presence. You don't even talk to us.
I think the thing is as well with that particular play, I saw it when it was revived at Dundee Rep, not actually so many years ago it came back, and it was just still wonderful, and the fact that it's just a completely different experience for the audience, the immersion of it, the feeling a part of the story, and that just feels so vital even for an audience member, but for someone who was a musician and interested in theatre, that must have been really inspiring to go, this is what we want to do.
Yeah, of course, the first time round, it was about half that size of a cast. It was just a group of half a dozen folk.
Yeah.
Alex was amazing. And the guys, Billy and Jodie Bett, Dolly McLelland and Liz, a great team. And that whole thing about talking directly to the audience, I loved it, you know.
Yeah.
To me, that was radical.
I do love as well that one meeting in many ways has led to so much more, although it was very much an intentional thing, because the 784 aspect, and then of course Wildcat, and we're sat here, and even a play a pie and a pint, which relatively speaking then feels quite new, 20 years old.
It's 20 years, yeah, I know.
What are your early memories of that? Because it was lovely speaking to Colin McCready and Blythe Duff about it last week, and Blythe was remembering having a conversation, I think it was quite early on, and David saying, I've got this idea. People come down at lunchtime, they watch a play, they have a pint, and I believe Blythe said, that sounds amazing. And Alex Norton was like, I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah, well, he wasn't the only one. A lot of people said, no, that'll never work. Folk don't do that. They go down the road there to that shop and have their lunch out of a shop,
Yeah.
They don't do that. They don't come to theatre and sit down. But they do. They did, in fact.
Completely.
It took 2 or 3 years to go off the ground properly, though.
I wondered if there was a point at which you realised that it truly had struck a chord. And one of the lovely things is that I've always noticed about it, you see the familiar faces, and people will come, and it's okay if that play's not for them. And this was always part of the idea and the philosophy, wasn't it? See, next week, you'll love it.
There's a lot of new folk all the time, but there's also a core that will come, whatever. They've got their ritual day, and they come, whatever, they come every Monday or every Saturday or every Wednesday, whatever it is.
Yeah. They just have their kind of...
I didn't like that one much. I'll see you next week. Yeah.
But it's always been such a lovely thing. What were the early discussions about it? Did it take a while to get off the ground once the
I'm not sure how long it took. Not very long. I mean, Colin had this place, was in the middle of getting it done up, and bumps into David McLelland in the street and says, here's a hard hat, come and look at this place. Come round, look at this building site. And he did. And he said, is there anything you'd like to do here? And McLelland said, aye, I'd love to. We've just been in Dublin, where they have a lunchtime theatre, and Bewley's, the coffee shop.
Yep.
And we'd been playing a show there, a one-man show, Hoagie Carmichael. And I went to see the lunchtime stuff. And I think it was a Polish, I can't remember what it was. But that was packed with 50 folk in the back room of a coffee shop, And they served a sandwich and soup, not a pie and a pint. And David said, how about a play, a pie, a pint and a play? And Colin had said, nah, you've got to give the play top billing. It's got to be a play, a pie and a pint. So that's how it came about.
That's fair enough, I suppose.
Yeah.
And we've got all the alliteration and it's worked fine. Now we've got it. You toured a celebration of Chick Murray, Funny Place for a Window. That originated as a play a pie and a pint at one point, didn't it?
Stuart Hepburn script, tremendous script, with Fab, Brian Sullivan and Maureen Carr as Maidie. She was fab. Great company, a great wee company.
Yeah.
Tremendous script, and we took out on the road.
I think you had it at the Edinburgh
Edinburgh
Fringe
Festival,
at one point, didn't you? During lockdown, that was a weird one, so it was like a kind of...
We did, yeah.
car
The second
park.
time round, we did it in a car park.
Yeah.
We were covered, but the poor audience weren't they? The poor audience were out in the elements.
I think I preferred seeing it here. A little bit cosier. I'll have my play, my pie and my pint under cover, if at all possible. But again, speaking of it being 20 years since a play, a pie and a pint, I mean, the fact that we lost Chick Murray almost 40 years ago now
40
is
years.
unreal.
Yeah.
He's still inspiring to you though, right? His story and
Well, I
celebrating
think,
his life.
he's a kind of icon for lots of comics and just any people who are interested in humour generally. And it took him a wee while to develop the style of absurd storytelling that he made his own. I mean, at first he was a singer and piano player, and he had a band called the When Hillbillies. A group, he didn't call it a band in those days. To have a band, you had to have trumpets and saxophones and things. Maidie, his new wife, talked him into the double act, and that's how it came about. And he just got crazier and crazier as he went along.
Yeah, but so well loved as well. And he actually features in the Scottish film that you've chosen for us. We'll come to that later.
Yeah, okay.
You've chosen a Scottish film to show us virtually at your imaginary night in we're having in around 8 years. You've chosen some Scottish bedtime reading for us as well.
All right.
But we're going to start by talking about the Scottish album that you would play us. And what I love about this particular record and this particular man is that, as with so much of your own work, he absolutely revels in song, but also in storytelling.
A proper songwriter,
and also in theatre, right? So much of his work was in theatre as well. So Michael Mara.
When did I first hear him? Late 70s maybe, in Falkirk Town Hall. And he was on in the first act and I was on there. And he sang I Don't Like Metal, which really, really appealed to me. I thought it was brilliant. I thought, this is Randy Newman. This is who this is. Only from Dundee.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
Quite.
I so admired him.
I don't like metal, and metal don't like me. Oh, Mr. Alexander, take me across the bridge to Sanctuary.
At what point did you kind of get engaged with him work-wise then? Was it just a continuation of kind of seeing him playing and...
Yeah, really. We just invited him to join a company that was doing a thing called Fancy Rapping.
Yeah.
And he was great in that. He played a street preacher.
That's so him, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, very much him. Yeah. Yep.
In all of his incarnations. And also it's very much his vantage point, I think, with his feet on the ground. But the observations can almost be magical from that vantage point, can't they? It's a really, really lovely thing. You chose a live album, High Sobriety, is recorded at the Bonner Hall.
Because of the repertoire that's on it.
Yeah.
Because of the quality of the songs and the fact there's so many of his hits on it, I thought. Early hits, anyway.
Yeah. I think also, having seen him live quite a few times over the years, the storytelling between the songs is such a vital part of what he does, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's always sending himself up. It's rarely other people. I think something that's lovely about what he does is it comes from such a place of sort of kindness. So even a song that's effectively about illiteracy, Dundee was Africa, is very much coming from a place of going, that's not ignorance, and the world is wonderful, and here's a way to understand it.
Dundee was Africa, and Fife was Antarctica. If Arbroath was India, and Perth was Peru.
And that to me is at the heart of so much of the way
he
he saw
loved
the
people.
world.
He really was. He had the hope for the human race, poor Michael. Unlike an awful lot of folk I admire who have no hope for the human. George Carlin, for instance. I saw an interview with him the other night. He said, I just decided I would take the stance that we're doomed, we're absolutely knackered. We've done all the damage. Don't worry about it, guys. You're on the road to hell in a handcart, you know.
It sounds like he was feeling almost liberated about that. It's all been, the damage is done.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, whereas Michael Mara was always coming from a more positive, I would say, kind of viewpoint.
Absolutely.
And so many wonderful songs on that particular record. In saying that, I mean, you know, Aberdeen gets a bit of a hard time, and if Dundee was Africa, he will, you know, take aim at people or places if he feels they need it gently. Yeah. Frida Kahlo's other half doesn't come off so well as well he might in her visit to the
what do you call him,
bar.
the fat man?
The fat man.
Yeah.
But again, that's like
Diego Rivera, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, he explains the story before the song.
Yeah.
So it's accessible to those of us who know the story, those of us who don't. We understand the song more. But it's focused on Frida, it's focused on the wonder of that.
Yeah.
And like
extraordinary woman, really.
Yeah, completely. But like so many of his songs, you know, I can see that. I can see her in the Taybridge bar.
We were all flooded with a scarlet light. Came through the window with the rain outside. It all went quiet. And a vision appeared with a rose in her hair and a ring in her ear. And she says, Buenos dias, boys, this looks like the place. Make my re-entry to the human race. Here I am, and here I'll stay till it's hasta la vista and I'm on my way.
It's almost a play, isn't it? Like his songs are really visual.
Oh yeah. He loved to describe and I love the Taybridge song, you know, the General Grant's visit to Dundee.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. They're all so rooted in place. You mentioned McLelland, obviously. Dundee looms large in so many. And yet at the same time, especially on that particular record on High Sobriety, so many of the songs originated in theatre shows, including Mother Glasgow. So although he wrote
Mother
about
Glasgow
Dundee,
was from what? Are we home from home?
yeah,
It's called?
yeah. Mother Glasgow is a wonderful,
a belter, yeah.
and it's also perhaps the ultimate Glasgow song written by a Dundonian.
Yeah. Well, I Belong to Glasgow was written by Will Fife, who was not from Glasgow. He was from, I think he might be from Dundee as well.
There you go. And then Deacon Blue are often known as the quintessential Glasgow band, and Ricky Ross is from Dundee as well.
Yeah.
And we've just hit on something.
There you go.
I've got a whole dissertation now to write.
And Average Whites.
I know.
I mean, come on.
I know. It's the best place. But also,
Rab Noak said to me, there's something about living near the water that gives folk that kind of soul sound in their voice.
Well, that's really interesting, because I was speaking to King Creosote on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was speaking about the sound of Fife and how there's something about Fife, and maybe that's something similar, the seafaring lilt of it. But we wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I don't know that coming from Stirling. His lyrical voice and the way he saw the world was lovely, but the other thing about Mike O'Mara is his actual voice was just utterly beautiful. So even in something like Green Grow the Rashes, and of course he tells the story about why he loves that. Robert Burns seeing potentially God as a woman, there's always a story behind it, but his voice is just so
tremendous,
lovely, isn't it?
And the piano playing too, I mean, just the style of it.
There's naught but care on every hand, in every hour that passes, that signifies the life of man, and 24 the lassies, green grow the rashes, green grow the rashes, the sweetest tours that e'er I spend among the lassies,
Do you subscribe to the fact that, or the argument that maybe Hermless should be our alternative national anthem?
It's funny. It's a funny idea. First put up by Michael himself. He said, I think we should have this as national.
Yeah, I do love that. I do love that. I think there's even in James Robertson's lovely book about Mike O'Mara, Restless Moment, he's got some of the handwritten lyrics, and then there's a little bit at the bottom, and it says, my contender for the Scottish national anthem, and then the word contenders scored out.
Oh, right. Right.
I'm calling it myself.
And he mentions by name Robert McLelland, my comrade David's big brother, who was a very mild-mannered man, politician, MP for Caithness and Sutherland, abdicated from the Labour Party and went to Lib Dems, much to the chagrin of the Labour Party stalwarts up there. Anyway, that's another story, but he had this wonderful kind of mild-mannered approach to everything. There's so-and-so of these hamsters, Tamways mice, and Robert McLelland and me. That was Green Line.
And the stories behind how the songs came to life I've always loved as well. You'll say, I always wanted to write a song about such and such, but I didn't know how to do it, so obviously over time songs would come to life that he just didn't, like a puzzle, like a problem that he had solved. Did you always kind of write music? Did you always make music? Was that something that just...
Well, I thought I was a serious songwriter when I was 12 or something. And I thought I was a blues man by the time I was 15 or 16. I mean, I really thought I was a blues man.
And who's to say you weren't?
Well, anybody with any knowledge
of the blues,
really, of the blues, yeah.
But it's lovely to have that sense of sort of confidence that
you've got to identify as something, haven't you?
Right, yeah. A blues man at 15. I've got to say, I admire that audacity actually, because I bet you felt like you had loads of life experience as well, because we do when we're 15, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. My heart had been broken a few times and all that stuff.
You knew the world and all that's in it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of teenage life and coming of age, let's move from Mike O'Mara on stage and on record onto film. And the film you've chosen for us now, my goodness me, you've starred in so many beloved
I've done some
Scottish
films,
over the years.
It has. I mean, I would be disloyal to go anywhere else, but Greg's good, I think.
Even though you're wearing a local hero jumper.
But that was also Bill also a fantastic movie, but I was hardly in it. I ended up on the cutting room floor. There was a whole sequence with me and Dennis was the village accountant, and we had the scene together, and I had this scene where I was rowing off into the ocean. That was cut.
Oh, wow.
Partly, I think, because I got lost and I couldn't turn friggin' boat around.
You're joking.
I'm not joking. Out of Penn Harbour. The thing was, like, that was the shot, him sailing off and rowing off to his fishing boat. And I thought, how do you turn this bloody thing round? And only then did I get, lessons on how to turn a rowing boat around.
Retrospectively, that's helpful.
While I was making a picture,
Okay, so not local hero, because not directly of that, but
although
but
it was a wonderful movie. I remember it was a glorious, glorious summer. Although I didn't do the beach, the scenes that were around the shore. I was only in the village scenes, but it was fantastic, beautiful. And my boyhood hero, Burt Lancaster, was in it. And
I mean, the casting really was utterly spectacular,
else,
right?
Yeah, I mean, he did all his own, that thing about doing all his own stunts and everything. I thought, oh, that's fabulous. What a man. What a guy,
Yeah, quite. And also just the sort of mix of that and familiar faces from Scotland was just such a brilliant blend. However,
and Peter was brilliant, isn't it? Peter,
yeah.
Absolutely tremendous, yeah. Anyway, we're talking about the wrong movie.
But actually, I'm going to go back as well now, because when it was the sort of 40th anniversary, that was when it would have been of local hero. We celebrated Gregory's Girl on Radio Scotland with Claire and Bill Forsyth and Alex Norton, in fact. And then local hero came along, and Dennis was in the studio, but Peter was on the phone from America, which just felt like the most apt thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Down the line, phoning home, I thought nothing's really changed, right? That's the very spirit of that entire film. It was a
I was in another picture with Peter called Living Apart Together.
Wow. Okay.
Charlie Gormley picture. Charlie's gone now, but he was a very new actor and he wasn't all that tremendous in it.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with him the other night, and he was talking about how he was a rubbish actor when he started.
Really? Quite openly.
Yeah, quite
Fair
openly,
enough.
yeah.
Fair enough. Always.
But he wasn't rubbish, but he wasn't the same comic kind of genius he became.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, maybe that took time, that timing, because certainly by then, incredible. So, however, Bill Forsyth, Gregory's Girl, Gregory's dad, right? I mean, when did you first even hear of the premise of this? How did you get involved with it?
The pub.
Right.
The pub and the Halt Bar on Woodlands Road.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Bill had seen me in a couple of things with Wildcat, or was it in 84, maybe even before Wildcat, and thought maybe I had the right kind of approach to be the dad. And, anyway, he just approached me in the pub and he said, do you fancy doing this picture? And of course I did. Equity minimum for an afternoon.
What did he tell you about it at this point? How did he paint the picture of what this film might be?
He said he'd done Sinking Feeling, which was a fabulous picture, and I should maybe have picked that, because that's a wonderful movie. But anyway.
The great Rab Buchanan.
Works in your hometown now.
He's actually my uncle now.
He's not.
He is. I've already shared this in a podcast, but I can't not mention
He's your uncle now? You mean he wasn't before? What? How do you mean? How do you mean your uncle now?
One of my dad's sisters married him last year, so he's my uncle Rab now.
Okay.
And in true, wonderful, almost Gregory's Girl form, he didn't go to Caracas, but they eloped to Barra.
That was a nice thing to do.
Yeah, I know. So, yes, I know him well.
He's a great guy. Great
he is
guy.
Absolutely lovely.
A very funny actor, I
booth.
must say.
He's
brilliant. He runs the toll booth like a captain of a ship. He's really tremendous.
Yeah, he's wonderful. So, that sinking feeling. And I mean, Bill, again, when I've spoken to Bill Forsyth in the past, has explained that, it was really only because of the sort of success of that sinking feeling that Gregory's Girl even exists. So
really I don't suppose it was a commercial success up to that point.
No.
But it was certainly a success as a bit of work. I mean, it was... And he said, I've got this a lot of the same kids. I think he may have called them kids. I don't know whether he did. He may have said young people. I don't know. And Gordon was fab. Superb. Carolyn Guthrie is back in town, living back in Glasgow now.
I love that everyone comes home, or most people anyway. So Bill approaches you in the hot bar,
Aye.
as much as he had, as I understand it, Claire Grogan in the Spaghetti Factory or wherever she
Aye.
was working, and suggests that you could maybe play the dad in this.
Yeah.
So then, what are your memories of the filming of it? How involved were you?
Well, it was an
sort of
afternoon.
day-to-day?
I mean,
yeah.
it's only about a minute of film, really. When you get down to
Really?
it. Yeah, I mean, when you watch it. But it was a great experience, and he was very spontaneous on the set, you know. I made a mistake, and my co-actor, Billy Johnson, corrected me. I'd called him by the wrong name, and he corrected me, and Bill said, "That's perfect, we'll leave it in." Because the guy's a driving instructor, and he probably doesn't remember people's names, so that's fine, leave it in, it's good, it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, so allowing for that to happen, allowing for the
Yep.
spontaneity, and actually it's so natural, and perhaps that's one of the reasons why. What was it like then? You had that afternoon, and then was there a screening? Do you remember where you first saw it?
There was a rehearsal. We had an afternoon's rehearsal up in Bill's flat near, just off Woodlands Road, up the hill a wee bit. And we sat in chairs in his living room and pretended we were in the car and ran the scene, and somebody read in Gordon's lines. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And then I don't know how long it took before we were actually on the set. But
What did you make of the film when you first saw it then? Because
I
that's
loved
quite
it. I
disembodied.
absolutely loved it. I thought it was so witty and so kind of insightful about being a teenager.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And some great performances. Really wonderful.
I think it's a magical film. Even the light in
For
it
sure.
just feels wonderful.
It's slow. I don't know if you notice that about it now. It probably wouldn't get the go-ahead now because of the pace of it. It's gentle. It's a reflection of its time, you know.
I couldn't agree more with you, and I think that's one of the things that's utterly lovely about it. And actually, you know, the unhurriedness of it, in some way, I think lends itself to the timelessness of it, because the humour and the characters and the dialogue and the romance play out in their own time, and that
Aye.
feels really precious now somehow, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, there's no rush, and that's all right. We don't need too much happening. We've got enough
we
going
don't.
on.
We don't need all the cuts to. You know, when you watch a conversation on film these days, it's all single shots. You know, you and I are talking, and when you talk, the camera's on you. When I talk, the camera's on me. It doesn't have to be like that. at all.
Yeah, quite. I watched the TV adaptation of The Steamy again relatively recently,
Oh, yeah.
but it struck me that that's similar in many ways, and that it allows the characters and the dialogue to just shine almost in real time. I know obviously that started as a play, it is a play, but it strikes me that there's something of the essence of that in The Steamy as well.
Aye, of course there is. Yeah. It was cut to ribbons, of course, for the TV version.
Yeah, but the play itself can just breathe.
Yeah.
Tell us a wee bit about the story about that coming to life. Is it true that Elaine C. Smith had kind of taken a bit of a shine to it? But
She has to, she's got a lot to answer for. She saw a reading of it at the Tron, a rehearsed reading, and she was taken with it, and she discovered that nobody wanted to make it, you know. It had been commissioned, and I think it was Borderline or whoever. Said, nah, there's nothing happens here. Nothing happens in this story.
What are we just saying? Really? Okay.
No, I don't want to do this. So Smithy said, tell you what, a couple of songs and it would work really well. So that's what happened. So you can blame Smithy for the very existence of the Steamy as a theatrical experience.
Isn't that incredible, though, that she saw the life in it? And of course, lots and lots happens within it. It's just not ostensibly. There's no murders, and there's no kind of like
as
big
Tony
plot
has
twists.
said, there's no car chases and no shootouts or anything like that.
Which of course is the enduring magic of it. But I also love that she realised that the songs might elevate it to something else. And again, that seems to be something you've just embraced so wholeheartedly, the idea that kind of music and stories and characters can empower each other on stage.
Provided the song isn't time out, as McLelland used to say to me. Okay, is this song just time out here? Is it just, do we just stop the narrative and do a song? Is that what it is? I mean, that's rubbish. Make it, make it relevant, the song. So we always try to do that. Didn't always succeed, of course.
That's brilliant. I love that. It's not you're not stopping for the musical extravaganza, then going back to the story. So with something like The Steamy then, how did that work? Because the songs are so inherent to even the emotional, fabric of it.
Well, they are now. I mean, it seems like that now, but they weren't in there. There were just bits. I mean, it seems to me there was a sequence of routines.
Yeah.
And you get to the end of a routine, I thought, okay, we'll have a song here that maybe says a wee bit more about the subject in that routine. And one of them was a monologue. It was about wonderful to be a woman, isn't it? You know, like your life, your daily life, and the grind and all that. And I thought, it's a good monologue, but it'd be an even better song. So we turned that into a song.
Yeah. Yeah, so like working really closely with the text, so it's all interwoven. There's no time out.
I just rejigged the text and turned it into. Yeah, it's a lot of it was repurposed.
Yeah.
Recycled.
I do love if it wasn't for Elaine C. Smith rocking up to the Tron that day and there being the borderline reading. But there are so many moments like that, aren't there? If you maybe, just circumstance and right time.
Absolutely, yeah.
You got to be open to that. There are musical echoes in the book that you've chosen for us as well, the bedtime reading, Dave Anderson. The difference is we've maybe spent some time reflecting on the gentleness of your album, Michael Mara's High Sobriety, and your film, Gregory's Girl. We can't really say the same about the book that you've gone for, and it's named after a Warren Zevon song. The author is also in a rock band, the Fun Loving Crime Writers. But you couldn't really say Quite Ugly One Morning is a gentle book. Especially not at the start.
Hardly. No, but he's a fine writer, isn't he? He's a great... you've just interviewed him recently,
yes, I absolutely love him.
Yeah, some guy. I think he can really write. There's lots of other things I could have chosen, but because it's relatively modern, I thought that was one to go for. And
I think also, going back to it, knowing that we were going to chat, 'cause it's been a few years since I read it, and rereading it, first of all, I was like, my goodness me, it's quite rare these days to see a journalist portrayed not only as a hero but as a superhero.
Oh yeah.
As an action hero, in fact.
Yeah.
It also made me realise that Chris Brookmeyer's love of sort of hard-boiled LA living, which resonates in his most recent book, The Cracked Mirror, goes way, way back to Jack Parliban, doesn't it? In this first book, we meet this journalist who'd been over there in the States. And
is that the first one with that character?
Yeah.
Quite ugly.
Quite ugly. That's his debut
Okay.
novel. Yeah, it's the very first one. So it fairly makes an entrance. I mean, there are few opening scenes that are as grotesque and memorable and horrendous as crime scenes. It's almost like a theatre set.
Yeah, I like the pictures he paints.
Yeah. There's also something else that's lovely about it, which is that he, it's a political satire in a way, and you can make such valuable political points. I mean, my God, you'll know this more than anybody, by not necessarily immediately ramming it directly in someone's face,
well,
right?
Nothing is more memorable than a good gag,
Yeah.
I think. Sorry about the sirens outside, readers.
It's very dramatic.
Listeners.
It's very dramatic out there, isn't it?
Yeah. City life.
Yeah. But so Chris Brookmeyer, like, you just sort of engaged with him as a sort of writer, and what I love is it is mystery, it is a political satire. We obviously have the very obvious evils in it, which are effectively kind of Tory fat cats.
Yeah. So obviously all of that resonated with me,
Yeah, quite. The antagonist is Stephen Lime. That'll be S. Slime. He has a lot of, I think, fun with names, the playfulness of it as well.
Yeah, like Charles Dickens did.
Well, that's it. It goes right back, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When did you first go to theatre or engage with stories? You've said, you were sort of writing songs and being a musician and being a blues guy in your teens.
No, the theatre didn't do anything for me at all. Because of that thing about naturalism and the French windows and the Edinburgh for tennis and all that crap, could not get into it at all. So theatre wasn't... But I loved variety, and I loved panto and all that.
Yeah.
And narrative, things that are strong in narrative and big on jokes as well.
And it can do all that, right, at the same time. And of course, even
panto. It should do all that,
Yeah, exactly.
I was talking to Liz, a great name to drop for you, Liz Logan, about how comedy with no drama is kind of a bit weak and a bit kind of wet. And likewise, drama without a bit of comedy is equally not very satisfying.
Well, interestingly, I would say all of those things ring out in Chris Brookmeyer's
I'd say
writing.
so, yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Going back to Quite Ugly One Morning, it does all of those things. It's a kind of it's a political satire, or is it a political drama, or is it a mystery, or is it this kind of hard-boiled cop who finds himself in Edinburgh? I love that you've taken us around the country. We were in Dundee with Michael Mara.
Yeah.
We were in Cumbernauld with Gregory's Girl, and then we're actually in Edinburgh with Quite Ugly One Morning.
Well, I was playing piano in a restaurant, an Italian restaurant in Bothwell. For a wee while. Every Friday night, I think it was. And he lived a couple of blocks away from this restaurant. I don't think he was ever in the place.
I think he's still out that way. Barhead boy originally.
It's a footballer territory.
I know it's the big houses, it's very fancy. I like it out there. Do you still play music and things like that regularly?
I'm really only now, I mean, it's a bit weird. I'm only now getting back into playing any music at all. Because I had a stroke about 3 years ago. And I told myself that it had done me in, that I couldn't do it anymore. Because for a wee while, half of my hands was numb and didn't work right. But then it came back, and then I thought I'd lost some kind of muscle memory or something, coordination or something. But I haven't. It was just lack of practice. So I'm playing more now again. Thank God. Yeah.
Quite exactly.
It's much more like a proper life when you play music.
There's naught but care on every hand.
The wonderful Dave Anderson there. Here's to more music and more theatre and hopefully more chats like that from that lovely man. If you fancy seeing a bit more of Dave through the years, Gregory's Girl, Restless Natives, Local Hero and Tutti Frutti are all streaming now and they are all wonderful. If you fancy reading more about Michael Mara, James Robertson's superb book about him, Arrest This Moment, is out now, but you can also hear James singing his praises along with another Dundee legend, Andrew Vaslick, on A Kick Up the Arts. We recorded an episode of the podcast at Dundee's V&A a few weeks ago. There's another episode that has more chat about a play, a pie and a pint with Taggart's Blythe Duff and Colin McCready if you fancy that. And, as fate would have it, there are also special episodes with writer Chris Brookmeyer and with Gregory's Girls Claire Grogan. The more I do these podcasts, and it's just been over 2 months now, the more I realise, as I always knew, that everything's connected. I also want to give a shout out to Fergus Morgan's terrific podcast series, A History of Scottish Drama in 6 Plays, which includes a deep dive into the absolute masterwork that is John McGrath and 784 Theatres, The Cheviot, The Stag and The Black Oil. Dave, of course, in our conversation touched on the impact that had on him back in the day. All right, I better get out of here before this sign-off lasts longer than the conversation itself. I'm Nicola Meehan. This is A Kick Up the Arts. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear from you wherever you are. You can email me. It's nicola@akickupthearts.org, or you can find me on social media. And in the meantime, I'm away to watch Tutti Frutti yet again.